Hey everybody, and welcome to Season 5 of How I Built It. I'm really excited about this season. I get to talk to a lot of great guests. We hit our 100th episode, and it takes us right up to the end of the year with WordCamp US 2018. But that's all a ways away from now, where I talk to my very special guest, Rachel Cherry. She'll be talking about WPCampus, which is happening in about a month from now. So we're going to talk about how she came up with the idea for WPCampus, how WordPress has affected higher ed, and what it's like organizing an event like WPCampus, which is kind of outside the purview of the normal WordCamps that people in the WordPress community normally attend. So really excited to get into all of that with Rachel, but first, I want to tell you about this episode's sponsors. You'll learn about Pantheon a little bit later in the show, and this episode is also brought to you by the Events Calendar. The Events Calendar is a free plugin by Modern Tribe. With over 11 million downloads, it's one of the most popular event management tools for WordPress. Modern Tribe has supported WPCampus from the start, and they are proud of the solid reputation the Events Calendar has earned within the higher ed community. They remain committed to open source, regularly adding new features to improve their plugins. Take Gutenberg, for example. They've gone all in developing solutions for the new block editor, and they've already released an extension for users to test it out. Check out their latest work at theeventscalendar.com, theeventscalendar.com. While you're there, snag a 20% discount on their premium add-ons using the code HOWIBUILTIT. That's How I Built It, all one word. And now, on with the show. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of How I Built It, the podcast that asks, how did you build that? Today, my guest is Rachel Cherry of WPCampus. Rachel, how are you today?
I'm doing wonderful. How are you, Joe?
I am fantastic. The weather here on the East Coast is finally nice as we record this. I know that you just came from California and now you're back in Alabama, is that right?
That's right. It's
cool.
It's really nice here today. It's a little warm, but not too bad, like high 80s, so it's a nice day.
Nice. Yeah, I will definitely take that. I have vowed to never complain about the heat because I complain about the cold. So I'm like, you can't have it both ways, you know? I'll complain about the snow, and when it's like 100 degrees, I'll be like, whatever, it's not snow. So
one thing I will miss about California is the weather. It was always like 70 something degrees, windy, breezy, beautiful. It's hard to not miss that.
Yeah, absolutely. Chris Lemma always busts my chops about that because he's, in Southern California, or San Marcos is near Southern California, I think, or is Southern California. I'm a New Yorker, so I just think it's like Los Angeles and San Francisco. But he's always busting my chops about that. He goes, you don't have to be cold all the time. And I'm like, I know, family and stuff. So,
right.
Yeah. But so today we're going to talk about a very cool event/organization. You guys do a few events throughout the year called WPCampus. So why don't we start off with you telling us who you are and what you do?
So, hello, I'm Rachel Cherry. Currently, I am working for myself. I just kind of started this whole new adventure doing freelance, and why I moved back to Alabama to be around my family and to start this new career path. But so right now, a little bit of a limbo space. So a lot of my time is going towards WPCampus and our event. But generally, I'm a software engineer. I write a lot of software. On top of being the director of WPCampus. And so I kind of get around as far as writing code and organizing events and organizing the community. And I try to speak at WordCamps when I can, things like that. So it's a little bit about me. And then, so yeah, I don't know if you wanted me to dive into WPCampus or not.
Yeah, absolutely. I heard about WPCampus while I was still at the University of Scranton, I think, which is now 2 jobs ago.
Oh.
But why don't you tell us kind of when it started and how you came up with the idea for it?
Yeah, so speaking of Chris Lemma, he played a little bit of a role in it. It was summer of, wow, it's been like almost 3 years, which is kind of crazy. This summer will be our 3rd in-person conference.
Wow.
So it started in the summer, late summer, early fall of 2015. And I was at the University of Alabama, which was my job right before my previous job at Disney, and so my last higher ed, and I was on Twitter, and there was a big announcement about WordCamp US. That was the first WordCamp US in Pennsylvania. And
yep, Philadelphia. Right where near I live, actually.
Awesome. And so lots of people, they were announcing something, and the hashtag was, WordCamp US, so this is where Chris Loma came into play, because he saw it. He tweeted that he thought it looked like WordCampus. Mm-hmm. And so I'm sitting there at my desk and I'm like, oh my gosh, like light bulb. And I tweeted something, I quote tweeted his and said, wouldn't it be cool if we had a WordCamp focused on higher education? And it just all kind of the ball rolled down the hill, and it all, blew up from there. And so we got, Chris even helped me set up wordcampus.org, and I set up like a landing page of, just getting people's information. I set up a Slack account. So we started hopping into Slack and chatting and talking about how fun this would be. And it all just went from there. I think that was August 2015. And so we had our first event the next summer in July of 2016 in Sarasota, Florida, at the University of South Florida, Sarasota Manatee. It's a quite mouthful, but it's a beautiful little campus. And we had a lot of fun. It was a 2-day event. It's very similar to a WordCamp, except all of our topics are just more narrowly focused on higher education, which was part of the reason why I created this event, and why everyone, is so gung-ho about it, because a lot of people, I think, had a similar, it's not a problem, but more of just an issue of going to WordCamps and just, you have fun. You obviously have fun. There's lots of great people. You get something out of it. But I would always leave with that kind of, that thought in the back of my mind. Like I wanted to talk about, stuff that I do, and there was nothing for me here at this camp. I might get a few dev things out of it. I try to, go to non-dev talks, whatever, but no one was talking about the kind of stuff that I did day to day. And so what's really great about our event is that people in higher ed, it's a camp for them to go to and talk about the things that they do every day. And so, so it was a lot of fun, and we're still cracking, and we're still having tons of fun.
Very cool. Yeah. So I do need to make a stat correction here, because I was in the IT department of the University of Scranton from 2011 to 2014. I was still teaching in 2015, which is why I associated WPCampus with the university. And now I actually applied to speak and got accepted to the first one. And unfortunately, like a scheduling conflict prevented me from going. So I was very upset I couldn't make it. There was another thing going on that weekend, and it was like right after I got married, and we found out that my wife was pregnant with our first child. So like, I'm very bummed to have missed that. And I definitely want to make it out to an in-person event, because I mean, WordPress in higher ed's a very different animal from a lot of other organizations, right? Like we both have enterprise experience now as well, and I saw a lot of similarities, but higher ed's a little bit different. There's kind of different types of red tape and budgetary discussions and things like that. And I know when I was at the university, I fought tooth and nail to get WordPress like accepted on campus. It was a very hard uphill battle. And that was like my shining achievement when I left. Like the CIO was like, well, your mark is that WordPress is now widely used on campus. So, was your experience similar? And is that is it a place for people in higher ed to kind of commiserate about stuff like that? Or do you find that WordPress is pretty well accepted across campuses now?
I do think it used to be a problem. It wasn't a problem at my last university, because they were already using it by the time I got there. And it was the opposite for me. Like I came and had never touched WordPress, and part of the job description was you have to learn WordPress. And so that was already a thing, although it kind of started doing the opposite when I left. They started rolling and wanted to use a proprietary CMS, but that's a whole other conversation. So I do think it used to be a problem. I do think it's getting better, where it's being more easily accommodated and implemented. From my experience and from things that my conversations with people, it used to have a lot of, what's the word I'm trying to think of? Like
There was like a stigma.
Stigma, thank you.
Yeah.
It used to have a few stigmas, one being security. Because what would happen a lot in higher education and WordPress is that they do have limited resources and on top of limited budget. What I usually tell people is higher ed is enterprise level on a budget. And which I believe to be very true.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
And because you're doing these crazy, high level scale work with crazy amounts of editors and users all over the, college with university with different needs and all this stuff, but you probably have like 2 people doing it. So you have what ends up happening a lot is that you'll have these low resources and budgets. You'll have like 2 people managing a thing. And then if it's not set up correctly, WordPress can be successful in higher ed, but you have to know what you're doing. And what a lot of people, they think, back when WordPress had that whole advertising about how it's easy and the 5-minute install, I think what happened on a lot of higher ed campuses is they see that easy and they don't have to hire someone to manage it and give upkeep. And so, random faculty staff members would set up a blog. No one would come and check on them. They would ignore the blog. 2 years later, the blog would get hacked. And, and so after several years, after, a few years and years of that, it gets a stigma with IT department about how easy WordPress gets hacked. And we're all going, no, it's not necessarily WordPress's fault. It was more of an administration fault, management fault, and there was no one watching it, blah, 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 and things like that. And so then you have to start defending WordPress to your IT. And ultimately, generally, IT has to be the one that accepts WordPress because they're the ones managing the servers and things like that. So it becomes very bureaucratic and can be an uphill battle if you're already kind of downhill from the start because of these past experiences. So with all that said, I think it's getting better, but I do think it's still a struggle for some people.
Yeah, absolutely. And my experience is the same. I even had like a student in our tech support area, the technology support center, they were called. And he was like, WordPress isn't secure. And I'm like, he's like, it's less secure. I'm like, then what? I'm like, what software doesn't become less secure when you don't update it? So, yeah, I was like kind of that same atypical computer science student when I was in college, but the one that like knows everything.
So to add on to that, so what's also just as important as all of that stuff as keeping it up to date, is things like governance where you have a plan, you're not just going to willy-nilly set up WordPress installs. You have, if you want a WordPress install, you have to go through process A and then we have process B that checks up on it. And then you have to go to training and you have to do things like that. Like governance is just as important and your plan and all of that, especially, if you're in this environment where manpower is limited. So if you have a process and that you can help, push it all through, then you can be successful. So we usually try to have at least one governance talk every year. And this year we're having a governance workshop, which I'm really excited about. Yeah, I'm going to the workshop. I'm make sure all of my tasks are taken care of because I want to go to that workshop. So that topic is always big in my mind. I like to talk about that a lot.
Right. Yeah. And that's a really good thing to touch on too. We have a lot of maybe self-employed folks, freelancers or developers who sell their own plugins. And when we set up WordPress at the university, we made sure to work with the faculty senate and the staff senate to make sure that they kind of knew the proper protocol for requesting and upkeeping for a WordPress site, because we wanted to make sure that it was controlled. Because as you said, it was when installs were not controlled that they would get out of date and, there'd be some sort of compromise, like a software compromise, not like an agreement. The software would get compromised. So that's really cool. And I love that there's a whole conference around this. And I want to talk to you about planning an in-person conference because I've done that before and it's very difficult. But there's also, you guys do an online conference as well, right?
Yeah, we started doing an online conference after the first in-person. So now we have an online every January and the in-person in July.
Great, great. And then was January picked because it's like a pretty good, it's like kind of a slow month and people are just getting back and they're probably not traveling because they were just traveling? Or was it just kind of, January seems like a good time?
It got to that point. We tried several other times of the year and things just, like, I think at first we were like, oh, let's do the fall. But then there just wasn't enough downtime after the in-person to then ramp. We would have had to like immediately ramp back up to the virtual. So there was just like, oh no, we just can't do that. Like, we need a break. And usually like the month after the in-person, like our Slack can be a little bit of a ghost town because everybody's like, we're taking a break.
Yeah.
and which is totally fine. And so so fall wasn't going to work. Plus there was lots of dates to work around, like holidays, Thanksgiving, if we don't wait too long, people go on Christmas vacation, blah, blah, blah. So we eventually landed on January, and it is a great time because people are just kind of getting back into school from winter break. So people are back on campus, but not too busy. And there's not a lot of WordCamps in January. Pretty much after WordCamp US, I mean, the United States WordCamps are kind of chill until February.
Yeah.
So, so there's that. We're not like necessarily competing, even though we have it during the week. So that doesn't really matter anyway. But so January is a good time. It's also kind of smack dab in the middle between the summer. So it's a good just intermediary event to get, some fresh content out for people.
Cool. Very cool. Yeah, I like that a lot too. I mean, online conferences are becoming a lot more popular because they're a lot more accessible to people.
Yeah.
But so that said, I want to ask you how you built. Essentially what goes into both the in-person and the online conference. And I suspect the shorter one of these answers would be the online conference. Is that accurate?
Correct.
Okay. So why don't we knock that out of the way first? Specifically, I'm curious about like the streaming technology you use and stuff like that. I've spoken at a few online conferences and it's always kind of been different. So how do you handle that stuff?
So for our streaming, we go with Crowdcast.
Okay.
And we do like it. It has some accessibility issues, which we've been actually communicating with them about, and they've been very perceptive to it. So the hope is that we can continue to use it as long as they work on these features, because it's not in horrible shape. But if they tweaked a few things, I think the biggest help that they would probably need is helping some way with captioning. If
Gotcha.
they could figure out a way to do live captioning. And so we're talking to them, and I've even thrown out some ideas with them about, we've tried this and, blah, blah. So we hope to keep using Crowdcast. We like it. Their technology is good. The price is reasonable. We generally pay about $90 for the day. So
wow.
That's not bad.
Yeah.
I think at the most we paid like a little over $100. And so that's reasonable, and their support is responsive. So we do like them. We embed their player on our website, and you can have registration for it and stuff like that. So I like Crowdcast. There are a few other options. None of them can come to mind right now, but so that's what we use for that. The online conference is obviously much easier there's much less planning into it. The main elements the biggest element is you still have all the speaker management. You still have to get proposals. You still have to decide. You still have to build your schedule. You still have that, which is a big chunk. And then outside of that, like marketing is another big chunk. And then operations. So we usually have an operations manager whose job is to basically build out the schedule for the day and who does what. We have a volunteer manager who makes sure that all of our volunteer needs are filled and that on the day of that they're there. And what I definitely recommend for anyone interested in this kind of thing is these two big areas: having an operations plan and having a volunteer plan. And most importantly for the operations is having a backup plan. Every decision you make should have a backup. At least one, if not two. And so everything goes smoother. And usually the first question that I always ask myself when we make a decision or we decide to do something new or, whatever is, what's the worst that could happen if this goes wrong? Like, if this goes badly, what's the worst that can happen? Yeah. And if the worst that can happen is not that big a deal, then great.
Yep.
And so these are things that you just think about because things will go wrong or, I think both years we've had at least one speaker drop out at the last minute. And so this year, our first speaker, and we have 2 rooms, one of the speakers in one room on the first block of the day, her computer wouldn't start. And so the first block, we pretty much just had one speaker, which was fine. We just encouraged everyone to go to the other room.
Right.
And, that was fine. And then at the same time, we had another speaker had to drop out because she was sick. And so, but we had like 3 or 4 hours between. So, we went to that first speaker. Hey, what are the chances of you getting your computer fixed? You could try again this afternoon. And she was able to, and it all worked out great. So, stuff like that. So that's what we're doing in the background. We're like messaging, we're going back and forth. But, it's always a really fun event. It's really great to just have a chance for the community to come together and talk. And the Crowdcast has a chat feature and this really cute, fun little Q&A feature. And you can upvote and downvote stuff. So speakers can just go down the list. And so we're actually going to try to implement that feature for our in-person this year.
Wow.
Because we try to live stream. We're still finalizing all those details, so we don't announce it until it's all confirmed. But we do try to live stream the in-person for free. And so we're going to implement like a Q&A feature on the site. So for in-person and online people to ask questions for the speaker, like while they're talking. And so then the speaker can just go back later and answer them. And then they're evergreen on the site too. People can come along later on our session pages and find them and read the QA. And so we're really excited. We're working on that right now. So that's a fun new feature we're going to add in this year.
This episode is brought to you by our season-long sponsor, Pantheon. Are you starting a new project? Are you looking for a better hosting platform? Pantheon is an integrated set of tools to build, launch, and run websites. Get high-performance hosting for WordPress sites, plus a comprehensive toolkit to supercharge your team and help you launch faster. On Pantheon, you get expert support from real developers, best-in-class security, and the most innovative technology to host and manage your websites. Sign up for a new site in minutes with a free account. You only pay when it goes live. You can learn more at pantheon.io. That's pantheon.io. And now, back to the show. Yeah, that's fantastic too. Because for people who can't make it out, you lose that interactivity, right? But, adding that sort of thing and being able to connect with speakers, even online, that's very cool. I'll be excited to see that if and when it rolls out. That's been a comment we've gotten before from people online because we do have a Slack channel for them. We encourage them to stay in there and like ask questions and be around to discuss. But I know it's not really super fulfilling for them because it's not super active from in-person people because they're busy, being in person and going out and about, and so their questions could get overlooked. And so I think this is obviously like a much better option. And so that'll be cool. Awesome. And since you mentioned the live in-person event, what kind of stuff goes into planning that? I know that I planned a WordCamp before. I'm on one of the organizing teams this year, and we have a little bit of a safety net with the foundation and the global sponsors and the financial backing they offer. But, planning a conference just kind of without that safety net sounds very scary. So, what's it like? I know you guys like rotate locations and stuff like that. What's maybe take us from like step one to day one? So we've been very fortunate to always have a really good group of sponsors, people that just, want to support what we're doing. And so we've always been fine budget wise, and nice. And, we didn't have any seed money. The first year we just went and
we had enough sponsor money. And, thankfully, if you've planned any of these events, you know that you don't spend the chunk of your money really till the end, till right when the event starts, maybe like a month before when you start ordering swag, and you don't pay for catering till really after. And so
like a wedding.
Yeah. Yes. So you don't necessarily need, $10,000, when you start, kind of thing.
Right.
And so we've always done pretty well there. Generally, the universities donate the space.
That's great.
So that's really great. It's really, universities they're really great about that kind of stuff. They want to support education and professional development. We will usually pay for like janitorial services and IT support. Those are people's time, especially on a Saturday. We usually ask for like an on-call IT in case the Wi-Fi drops out or something.
Right.
And so we make it very clear to them, like we don't mind paying for these kinds of things. And so then we always do on campus catering, which helps with them. And so we support them in whatever way we can give back. And we do a fun thing too every year. We make a plaque and we present it to the university. And, it says, that they were a WP campus. And
awesome.
I always enjoy giving that every year. That's a lot of fun. There's a really funny story. The first year we gave it out, there was a typo on the plaque that no one saw until we were literally giving it to this guy in front of everyone. And it was like, oh no. And,
oh, wow.
It was a funny moment. Everyone laughed. And I ordered another one and mailed it to them. But, it was, their name was so long that we just put their initials, or maybe we had both, but the initials were wrong. It was like UFSFM or something like that. And I'm standing there handing it to them and I spot it. Anyway, but so that's something fun we do every year for the university to show our appreciation. So that really helps a lot. And so then, we do social events usually off campus, which is a whole other ballpark of fun. But it's really great to find these places. And so there's a lot of planning that goes into that. And that can we're a big karaoke people. And so we usually our after party is karaoke. And so we do have a lot of fun with that. The first year was a lot of fun. We just took over this bar and this little small bar in Sarasota, Florida. And I know the people that were like in there with us were like, what is going on? But, we had tons of fun and did that last year. So we'll do that again in St. Louis. And so there's planning that goes into that. And so this year we're trying a few new things that we're excited about, where we've had workshops before, but they were smaller. They were part of the schedule. So they were 2 blocks. They were 2 session blocks. And it worked for the most part, but it was a little confusing and it didn't have enough time. Last year we had one workshop go into this. They just kept working through the snack break because they just wanted to keep going. We were like, great, have fun. This food will be here when you get out. And so this year we're adding a third day before the conference starts, where we're going to have 3 workshops. We're having a Gutenberg 101.
Nice.
With Joe McGill. That'll be lots of fun. And then we're having a governance workshop, like I already mentioned, with Shelley Keith, which will be really great. And I'll be there. And then we'll have a content strategy workshop with Jamie Schmid. So we're trying that out. We'll see how that goes. That'll be like a 4-hour thing with breaks. So tons of time. And then we have a welcome party. We don't do a speaker sponsor dinner. We just have like one party that anyone can come to. We like the idea that everyone's welcome. And so we usually do that Thursday night. So there's that. We are implementing something fun this year that we really haven't announced yet, but we're ready to pretty much anyway. So you get the first little tidbit of it. We're going to implement some games this year.
Nice.
And so we have like 2 or 3 like mini games that will be kind of going on in the background during the event. So we're really excited about that. We're actually about to open up, one of them being trivia, and there's 2 other things, but so we're about to open up a forum where anybody can submit questions. So to help us kind of build up our question bank.
Ah, that's cool.
So I'm finishing that up right now. And so that'll go online soon. So we're excited about that. We even have like an official game maker And he's excited about that, and I have to make him a badge or something. He can wear a shirt, something for the event that he can wear, that he's the game maker. So we're trying that out. That will be fun. And we're trying something different with lightning talks this year, where everyone's going to watch all the lightning talks together.
Oh, wow.
So basically we're going to have opening remarks in the auditorium, and then we're just going to stay in there for lightning talks and see how that goes. We picked picked a good range. There's 4 of them. We picked a good range with some really good speakers, and to kind of see how that goes. I like the idea of us all, of everyone being in a session together. Mm-hmm. And so we'll see what people think about that.
Yeah. I mean, it gives everybody something, if everybody goes to all different talks, at least they have those 4, right? That they can talk about.
Yeah, they have a good variety. I think we have we have a content, we have a dev, we have like a management, and then I forget the 4th one. I apologize to the 4th speaker. But so that should be, we'll try that, and that'll be a lot of fun. So yeah, there's a lot that goes into these events. Anyone who plans a WordCamp, which is very similar, they get it. It's a lot of work, but it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's people are like, why do you keep planning these events and getting involved? Because it is a lot of work, but it's rewarding, and I love it. So, okay, wow. So we're coming up on time, but there are a few things I want to parse out here with the venue specifically. First of all, for those of you who haven't planned an event, the venue is almost always the most expensive thing. It's either that or like Wi-Fi at the venue specifically will be the most expensive thing. So it's very cool that you can get the venue donated. I know that you have essentially a call for venues, for locations, right? Every year, every 2 years or something like that. How does that work?
So we put out a call for, basically an application to host, and we get about probably 6 to 7 every year so far, which is every year we get like 1 more or 2 more. So on average, it's about, I'd say 6 to 8. And so we go through, and we have a matrix of things that are important to us. Like, for example, proximity to an airport, mm-hmm. the actual venue, do we have enough space for us? We need we need 1 room that everyone can fit in, and we need 3 session rooms that can hold at least 80 people. And so are there, enough hotels around? So then there's like a second tier priority, like what's public transportation look like? Things like that. So we have a whole list, and we go down as a group, and then as a group we rate them and assign them points. It's, it's very higher ed matrixy,
right,
Rubik, whatever, grading Rubik.
Yeah.
And of course we are, higher ed. So, and then I have a phone call with the person that applied, and we talk about, details and things like that. And then we make a choice. And sometimes most of the time it's usually pretty hard, especially this year, especially the more we become known and people mm-hmm. know about the event, they want to apply, especially if they come to one, they want to apply for next year. Usually the easiest, to knock someone off is airport. Sadly, there's a lot of places that are just not near an airport. And if there's, 1 or 2 schools that are, they have to take crazy priority because it's hard. That's a hard thing the first year we were technically by an airport, but it was a small airport. Mm-hmm. But so everyone had to kind of go like 45 minutes to Tampa, which I didn't hear that many people complain about, but I think they were just being nice because it was our first year. But so then last year we were in Buffalo, which had a big airport, and then obviously St. Louis has a big airport. So that takes really priority. So it's really sad because there's lots of people in our community that are just crazy involved and super excited, and then they'll apply, and I'm like, I'm sorry, but you're like an hour and a half away from an airport.
Right.
And I feel your pain because my last university, Alabama, is this beautiful campus. It's huge. They have like top-notch facilities. I've organized a conference there, a higher education conference there before I left. But it was regional. Everyone drove. So, because Tuscaloosa is an hour plus from the Birmingham, Alabama airport. And it's just not cool. It's just not a lot of fun. It's not a lot of fun to land. I have to like rent a car and drive an hour or whatever.
Right. Exactly.
So that's a big thing. And so, but, we usually open that up in the fall and try to decide before Christmas. every year I keep saying, we're going to bump that up and bump that up. And then every year something happens and it doesn't get bumped up. But so that's what we do. And so we work with the schools and we have someone on the ground who's a rep for us. And, it's helpful if there's a WordPress community in the area because they can help us with on the ground stuff like finding social events and putting us in touch with any local vendors that could help us with swag or shirts. And so yeah, that's the main gist of it. It's a hard decision. It's usually like me sitting down the last minute, like we'll narrow it down to like 2 universities. And I'm just like, sometimes it's just like, you just go with your gut and, I'm sure like, any one of like, these 4 or 5 schools would work perfectly, but we can only pick one. Mm-hmm. This year, St. Louis, it's a grade. It fit all of our needs, but also the big thing for it that really helped win it over was it was a little more west. And our first 2 years we were in Florida and New York. So we were very extreme east. So we wanted to move a little bit. Yeah. And so that was one big factor that kind of pushed it above some of the other options. So there's lots of, as we were joking about the other day, there's just so much metadata involved in making these decisions. We were finalizing the schedule the other day, which we hope to get online by the end of the week. And, there's so much like meta factoring that goes on and where we place people and, where we make sure that topics, don't overlap and things like that. And so that, it's a lot that goes into that too. You were saying that the venue's usually the most expensive. So thankfully we've been fairly fortunate. We paid a little bit for a venue before, but it's not too bad. Mm-hmm. For us, the most expensive thing is by far food.
Gotcha.
Food by far.
Right. And you want to, because you want to have good food that's accommodating to all the dietary restrictions and stuff like that too, right? Yeah.
We've usually had pretty good food. This year we might try box lunches. So that would be different. We haven't done that before. Like last year we had like a buffet.
Nice.
It was pretty nice. We had this whole food court to ourselves. And
did you have wings? You were in Buffalo, right?
Did we have it for lunch? I don't know. Maybe. I think so. We had some buffalo, because I asked them for like regional food, but in hindsight, honestly, I can't remember if wings was one of them. But the second day we had a lot of regional food. So maybe wings was there, but every year we do try to have like a Google map of the area, which we already have up. Our guy on the ground there at the university, his name's Aaron, and he's super great. And him and some other locals, like Joe McGill lives there, and he helped build out this map too. It's extensive. So we go on there and we like hotels and transportation, like here's the airport and obviously the venue, and then like restaurants and coffee shops and breweries, and because it's St. Louis and, right. And so, that way our attendees can have a little bit of a guide. And so I know last year we had tons of wings places and and we try to go in for each one and like, here's why this place is good, and whatever to kind of help people get around a little bit. So that's a lot of fun. I hope that that's helpful for them.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I'm getting a little bit of FOMO. When is it this year?
It's July 12th through the 14th. So it's a Thursday through a Saturday.
Gotcha. And that is, I knew I could. That's like prime time for my in-laws' vacation. So we'll be, maybe next year.
Yeah, I feel bad. We have a sponsor rep that comes every year, and we try to have it on the same weekend every year because it's just easier for us. And we didn't plan it that way at first. It just worked out that way. And now we're just trying to keep it going. We are the same weekend. We've been the same weekend every year. And that's like this guy's wedding anniversary. And and every year I'm like, I'm sorry, dude. I feel bad a little bit, but he's a good sport about it. But so, yeah.
I'll tell him what I would try, what I've tried. Honey, we can go to this wonderful city for our anniversary. By the way, the day before I will be at a conference, but we'll have the weekend. So
St. Louis is a cool city. I'm excited. I'm staying a couple extra days so I can be touristy.
Yeah, it's on my list of places to visit. So cool. Well, we're a little bit over time, but that's okay because I've been enjoying this conversation. I hope the listeners have too. And I'm going to ask you my favorite question, which is, do you have any trade secrets for us?
Do I have any trade secrets? I saw this question. I thought about it. I thought about some silly like conference planning trips, like rent a car. I went to Buffalo, so I guess like WordCamp organizers have the luxury of it being in their own town.
Right.
And none of our events are in my town. So the first year my mother came. My mother was sweet and she drove down from Alabama and she had a car. And we used her car to get around. Yeah. Buffalo, I was like, I'll be fine. Because I only really need a car like the day before when I'm running errands to like get a few last minute things. I'll just Uber and Lyft around. Like it's totally fine. It was horrible. It rained. It poured down rain. And so like I walked for like a little ways, but then the skies opened. I literally had to go across the street. So my plan was just to walk across the street, but it was flooding, raining. I had to call a Lyft driver to literally drive me across the street.
Oh, man.
It was so bad. So yeah, my big lesson from Buffalo was rent a car. But then I guess my other big thing I always just try to tell people is just have a plan. Have like 3 plans for everything. Never be afraid to ask for help. And just try to enjoy it. Always just, like I said, try to think of, like, what's the worst that could happen? Because generally, it's not that big a deal. Like, the worst that can happen is this. And if that happens, we do this, and then we move on, So try to just relax and have fun and enjoy it. And because I enjoy every minute of it. And it's a lot of fun. If you ever want to try to get into something like this, I say go for it. And it's because it's a good learning experience. It's a lot of work, ask other people for advice and mentorship, feel free to ping me if you want. And just kind of dive in and enjoy it.
Fantastic. I love that. I would always give people similar advice. I was in drama club and I would say, if I forget a line or mess up a line, I'm probably the only person who knows, right? Me and the cast. The audience probably doesn't know unless I'm like, oh, I forgot, right? So if something goes wrong, you'll be one of the only people to notice.
Generally, yes. One of my favorite things that's happened so far is for our recent online event in January, I overslept. I didn't wake up until 5 minutes after the whole thing had started.
Wow.
And so that felt to me like, I was like, man, I'm doing something right because no one even noticed that I wasn't even there.
There you go. That's perfect, right? That's awesome.
That's when you know you're doing a good job organizing, when you got everything under control, when it starts and no one even notices you're not there.
Oh, man. That's great. Well, Rachel, thanks so much for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep. And where can people find you?
So I'm Bama Designer in almost all things of life. BamaDesigner.com is my homepage where you can go, and I have the beginnings of a blog, but I do have links to everything there, WPCampus and all my social media. WPCampus.org is our home for our community and our events. We have lots of resources that we're trying to grow. We have a blog we're trying to grow, and part of my new little life adventure is being able to give more time to help some of that grow even more now that I can dedicate some more time. So we'd love to have you involved. You don't have to be in higher ed to be part of the group. We have a lot of non-higher ed people that just kind of want to support what we're doing and be involved. We have a pretty active, but not too active Slack channel where you can come and ask questions and things like that. So in order to get in the Slack, you fill out our Get Involved form on our website. So it's pretty easy. You fill out the form, it auto invites you. And which also can help you make a user account if you do want to contribute to our blog or any of our other resources, things like that. So that is the place to go.
Cool. Very cool. And I'll be sure to link all of that in the show notes. And one more time, WP Campus 2018 is happening July 14th through the 16th, 13th through the 16th?
July 12th through the 14th.
12th through the 14th. July 12th through the 14th in St. Louis. So if you can make it out, definitely do that. It sounds like a fantastic event. And thanks again so much to Rachel Cherry for joining us today. I used to be an events planner at the University of Scranton, and I miss it sometimes. So getting to talk about that and kind of think about the things that you had to do when planning a live event was very fun for me. Thanks again to our sponsors, the Events Calendar by Modern Tribe and Pantheon. For all of the show notes, you can go to howibuilt.it/82. That's howibuilt.it/82. If you like the show, head over to Apple Podcasts and leave us a rating and review. It helps people discover us. If you want to support the show on your own, You can head over to patreon.com/howibuiltit and you can pledge for as little as $1 a month. That'll give you access to behind the scenes and exclusive content, interesting conversations, and a Q&A forum, plus a lot more. If you don't want to make the leap into pledging financially yet, you can go to howibuilt.it/Facebook and sign up for our Facebook community and connect with other listeners and previous guests. Thanks again so much for listening, and until next time, get out there and build something.